Hi everyone, and thank you very much for joining us in our webinar today. I'm Georgie, a member of the industry marketing team here at Houzz, and today we'll be touching on the concept of scope creep and some of the ways to minimise its impact on your business. Great, so let's get started. Many seasoned pros know what it's like when a project detours from the original proposal, whether it's the result of insufficient planning, an indecisive client, a client who collects ideas continuously during the process, or balancing multiple decision makers. Scope creep occurs when the terms of the initial project expand beyond what's covered in the proposal without explicit written consent and compensation. And it can impact your business in terms of project delays and reducing your overall profitability. On the Houzz Pro to Pro forum, general contractors shared that scope creep is an especially common pain point, but it can affect any home renovation pro. The good news is that by implementing a few best practices and recommending strategies, you can effectively manage projects in a way that minimizes the opportunity for scope creep to occur. So in this webinar, we'll define scope creep and discuss how it can impact your business. Then we'll share strategies to prevent scope creep to help improve the proposal process, streamline the project in progress, and promote a positive renovation experience for your clients. We'll also be sending you a checklist for scope creep, as well as the recording of this webinar in our follow-up email after this session, so don't worry about taking notes. In order to prevent or manage scope creep, it's important to understand what it is, as well as how to identify the signs. Certified project management professional Abiodun Adewale Soronolu defines scope creep as uncontrolled changes in a project scope. According to Soronolu, this phenomenon can occur when the scope of a project is not properly defined, documented, or controlled. According to a recent university research article, scope creep can cost up to 4 times as much as initial development costs. The cost of scope creep can include deferred benefits and lowered return on investment, increased maintenance costs, and additional expected loss, such as if the project is cancelled. Scope creep is clearly recognised as a challenge across many industries, but how can scope creep impact your business? One implication of scope creep is budget overruns. According to the 2018 House and Home study, 46% of homeowners who renovated in 2017 went over budget on their renovation, and 31% of homeowners who renovated in 2017 cited changing the scope or design as the reason why. Another consequence of scope creep is lost profitability. According to architect and business consultant Enoch Sears, one challenge with flat fee work is the potential for scope creep to eat your fees alive. You need to outline expectations of what will be delivered upfront, and that client delays and changes will require additional fees. In addition, scope creep can cause delays on other projects and put you in a bind. If you can't complete one project before the next one in your pipeline is stated to start, the second project could get pushed back. In that case, you'll have delays or need to find more workers to get projects completed as close to the original schedule as possible. So now that we have a base understanding of scope creep, let's explore potential causes. There are 3 primary cause areas: poor documentation, insufficient client education or visualization, and unanticipated issues. An article from Construction Executive magazine advises that scope creep can occur when there are discussions about scope but which were not written down and documented, which can be a problem when a dispute arises, and there is no way to track and source the change. Scope creep may occur when a client doesn't know about all of the design or material options, but learns about them later after starting the project, then wants to include something they didn't know of before. Another related cause that can be the homeowner's inability to visualize the design, then wanting to adjust after they see and know whether they do or do not like something. Architect Iparich Design says, most people cannot visualize the house from the plans or even many times 3D renderings. A lot of people want to make some changes only once they can physically be in the space and see it. Ironically, that same lack of visualization is often why homeowners decide to trust a pro's vision instead of going the DIY route. Scope creep can also happen on a home renovation project when a pro opens up walls and discovers unanticipated problems inside that must be fixed, causing the timeline or budget to expand. So scope creep may be avoided with improvements to pre-planning in terms of design work and communication, establishing a clear vision on behalf of the client, or having a better understanding of the details about the structure that will be renovated, all of which can minimize change orders down the line. In order to help prevent scope creep, you should prepare for and manage to a clearly defined scope of work. Construction experts recommend having a clearly defined scope of work. Create prep requirements, list key project documents, and detail essential project elements. These include site conditions, schedule, budget, material and equipment proposals, prefabrication, subcontractors, equipment and tools. The Project Management Institute recommends scope statements should include both features in and out of scope. This means listing what you will be including in the project and what you will not be changing in the project. So get granular about the elements of the project. For example, will you be moving water lines as part of the laundry room renovation? If so, where? If not, include that you will not be moving water lines. Having a list of what is and is not included can ensure the clients don't assume something comes with the project if you do not plan on performing that task. Having a detailed plan and contract that sets up the expectations for pro and homeowner ensures that you have something substantive to refer to if the homeowner asks you to expand. This is your safety net, what protects your profitability, liability, and smooths the way for productive conversations with your client. Now, let's dive into some tips that you can use to prevent scope creep before it even begins. First and foremost, help the homeowner set a budget in the beginning of the project and stick to it. Our House and Home study found that 77% of homeowners set a budget, which means the other 23% leave themselves vulnerable to scope creep from the start, because there is no final number holding the project together. We also found that even if they do set a budget, approximately 50% of those homeowners don't stick to it, giving you a 50-50 chance of your next client changing their mind throughout the process. Ensure that the client has an amount they are comfortable spending, and if they ask for additional features along the way, refer to the initial budget to keep them in line. Know the underlying desired outcome. Understanding what the client really needs from the project will allow you to deliver the right solution and can prevent change orders that generate as a result of the initial proposal not solving the underlying problem. Set well-defined goals. To define these goals, you can use the SMART criteria for goal setting, a strategy developed by renowned business consultant Peter Drucker in his work Management Concepts. Make sure that the goal you and your client agree upon when defining the scope are specific, measurable, acceptable, realistic, and time-bound. To make your goal specific, discuss with the homeowner what is and is not included in the project and include as many details as possible. What room or rooms will you work on? What materials will you include? What existing pieces will stay, if any? To make your goals measurable, quantify what you'll be changing. For example, how many walls will be painted? How many square feet of flooring will you install? How many windows will you replace? How many trees will you plant? Use wording in terms of numbers and size for ultimate clarity. To make your goals acceptable, both homeowner and pro must agree on the goals. To make your goals realistic, use your prior knowledge to set timelines that can accommodate all aspects of the project and factor in extra time for possible delays. To make your goals time-bound, include a schedule of when certain phases of the project will be completed, including any deliverables from you when the clients need to make their decisions and payment schedule dates. Have an all-encompassing contract. By having everything clearly laid out before beginning, you can use the contract as a project guide. Be sure to include items that are not part of the project scope to clear up ambiguity and protect you. When drafting the contract, ask if the homeowner has any other work they want done, and either expand the project from the beginning or plan on multiple phases. Discuss the costs of change orders. Let your clients know that it's much more efficient to think of everything they want prior to drawing up the initial contract. So if they want to change something later, there is a fee to spec the work. Be sure to share any relevant anecdotes from past projects where the scope changed. Wilson Design Studio shares, I charged a £200 administration fee for any change order requested by the homeowner. This was listed in its own section of the contract. It served primarily as a tool to get them to add any potential change to the scope of work prior to starting construction. This helped establish the fact that our time is valuable and even small changes can disrupt a project. Consult a design professional. When clients work with a designer from the beginning, they will receive a design that fits their needs, which reduces the chance of scope creep occurring. If you do not offer design services and the client isn't already working with a designer, insist upon it. If your client does not already have a designer on board, discuss with your client how the cost of hiring a designer can be less than the extra spent on a single design mistake. While full service might serve them best, even a few hours of consultation can be very cost effective. If you're a builder and find that clients approach you without having worked with a designer, perhaps this is an opportunity to refer them to a designer you've worked with in the past. If you are a designer, highlight how your skills can prevent the homeowner's project from creeping and causing problems down the line. Blake Design Limited says, designers can be instrumental to pushing the project forward, especially in the early stages of design decision making. I know lots of builders who have a list of preferred designers that they work with and recommend their clients hire. Designers help lay out the scope and avoid the change orders that stem from when clients are indecisive or don't think about all the elements of their project. While it would be optimal to stop scope creep from happening in the first place, that isn't always possible. However, there are steps you can take ahead of time to rein it in or lessen the impact of the project. Build in a contingency budget. Sometimes the scope changes because a homeowner wants to swap something easy that isn't worth pushing back on, and sometimes it changes because you discover major problems when opening up walls. Whichever the case, planning ahead with a contingency budget can be one option to keep the final cost from getting out of control. If you need it, the clients are already prepared to spend it, and if you don't end up needing to touch any or all of the scope creep fund, your clients will be impressed you ended up under budget. Washer Studios recommends, I typically recommend a contingency of 10% on most projects to deal with surprises. The complexity will determine your base point, and you increase from there as necessary. I've even seen people relieved that they went with a contingency as high as 20%. There's nothing more satisfying that when a surprise comes up, the client has the resources available to get what they want, rather than convincing them that they should get alternative because it's cheaper. In addition, Consumer Reports recommended budgeting 10% for contingency for home renovation projects. Limit free changes. One option is to let homeowners know that you can accommodate a certain number of changes within a pound amount spent, but after that they will have to pay. This way, you can still satisfy homeowners' needs and have some flexibility without being overrun. For example, Hinman Construction says, we have an unwritten policy, a get out of jail free card for first 2 changes or upgrades under £350. After that, it's more money per change or upgrade. Offer to do another phase. If you get a request to take on additional work unrelated to the original scope that would be better served by a new contract instead of a change order, let the customer know that you can certainly handle the request, but since it's outside of the existing contract, you'll need to draw up a new one to begin after this project completes. This way you can still meet the homeowner's needs while subtly communicating that you cannot just tack onto the existing project. Other pros plan ahead for this possibility. Shaker Interiors says, my contracts have a detailed scope of work for a one-time fee, and if there's scope creep, we address that at an hourly rate or agreed upon fee. When homeowners can see the progress of their current project, they may be excited about the design choices they already made and may be more inclined to do whatever necessary to enjoy the space as soon as possible rather than delay the project. If the homeowners are not living in the space while you're working on it, send progress photos or project milestones. When they receive financial updates, such as how much of the project has been paid and how much is still due, clients may realise there is not the budget left to make the changes. Icon Construction and Renovation says, we find that the communication aspect of large renovations or builds is first secured in detailed quotes and estimates, then concreted into place with great client communication and cost meetings to allow clients to see where the money is going. So now that we've covered the agenda items, let's start answering some questions that came through in the webinar chat. Edward asks, how much should I charge for a change order fee? So that's a good question. So usually the change order fee goes to the pro to cover the cost of time, so they do not eat into the job's profit. So calculate how much time it would take you to investigate the cost of the change, new materials, and for any lost time working on the project. A couple of £100 seems to be about the standard from what we saw. So it's enough that it may be a disincentive to change, but if it's really important to the homeowner, they can still get what they really want. And Karen asks, how am I able to find out what the client expects from the potential project before contacting them? Another good question. So in some cases, it may be the first time your client is carrying out a project. So assisting them with expectations is crucial. So at Houzz, we introduced a tool to combat this, which is Project Match. Homeowners can fill out inquiry forms based on the questions we ask them, and professionals are able to identify what the client expects prior to contacting them. And Joan asks, one of the issues clients struggle with is setting a budget that matches their needs. What can I do with my Houzz profile to help set expectations? Okay, so this is a great question, Joan. For home professionals, this is a common problem within the industry. In order to combat this, you are able to showcase the details and costs on your project so that homeowners are roughly aware of what to expect should they wish to set a realistic budget. The photo section on Houzz is where you can manage expectations as users spend the majority of their time there. So by getting the right information on your projects and profile, homeowners know what to expect prior to contacting you. And it may well be worth asking someone from the Houzz team to show you the roadmap of Houzz users, as it differs from a home professional. So that is all for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope it was useful, and we look forward to seeing you in our next webinar.